Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Heather with the Institute of Child Nutrition, and I would like to welcome you to the I'd like to welcome you to our CACFP webinar series. And as a friendly reminder, please save the date for next month's webinar on innovative menu planning, which is scheduled for Tuesday, August the 19th, 2025. Did you know that ICN has a designated help desk to assist you? If at any time you have child nutrition program questions or would like to order resources on our website, you can do so by contacting us at helpdesk@theicn.org. We also have a toll-free number where you can access a live person who will connect you with a subject matter expert for any questions that you may have. Today's webinar is on efficient food management, best practices for CACFP vendors, inventory, and storage. During today's webinar, all of our attendees will be muted. Questions can be asked by typing them into the question box on your screen. We'll try to answer as many as possible, but not all may be addressed due to time constraints. Please use the QA box only for questions for the presenter. And after the webinar, a link to a short survey will appear. Completing this survey helps ICN plan future webinars. Registered individuals will receive a follow-up email within 24 hours containing a recording link on iLearn, which is ICN's online platform, and the survey link again in case you missed it. Webinar certificates will be emailed within 24 hours as well. And note that the slide deck won't be shared today. The webinar will be available only in video format within iLearn. As a reminder, ICN features two other webinars: CICN, which focuses on the culinary side of child nutrition, as well as STAR, which is designed for school food nutrition. The content found within the CACFP 101 webinars are designed with family childcare homes and childcare centers as the target audience. The additional webinars can be found within the iLearn portal. So by the end of this webinar, attendees will identify how to select and purchase foods from safe sources, explore best practices for storing food items correctly, including temperature control and safety measures to maintain quality and safety of foods that are served in the CACFP. The views and opinions expressed in this webinar are solely those of the presenter and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Institute of Child Nutrition. So let's meet today's guest panelist. Teresa Turner is a registered dietitian, school nutrition specialist, and alumna of the historical Tuskegee University. She is currently the supervisory dietitian of food operations at the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs Baltimore Medical Center. In her prior position as the Army Child and Youth Services nutritionist on base Fort Meade in Maryland, she managed the food service operations of 6 child and youth programs while also functioning as the Child and Adult Care Food Program Administrator. Teresa focuses upon safety and efficiency in food service operations, child nutrition, nutrition education, and social justice, especially regarding food system inequity, child food access, and nutrition security. Teresa is a past chair of the Academy of Nutrition's and Dietetic Diversity and Inclusion Committee and a past president of the Maryland Academy of Nutrition Dietetics. She most recently served as the MAND Council on Professional Issues Chair, charged with ensuring the successful execution of the organization's largest annual professional development event. She looks forward to what her continued service will contribute to the community and to the profession. Teresa also serves on our ICN-CACFP National Advisory Council, and I've had the great opportunity to collaborate with her during her term, and I'm just super excited to welcome her to today's webinar. So welcome, Teresa. We're ready to learn.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So great afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Tuesday. Tuesday is actually one of my favorite days of the week. So a lot of people say Friday, but mine is Tuesday. As she mentioned, we're going to be discussing efficient food management and some best practices for CACFP vendors, inventory, and storage. In my past role, I did have control over the inventory, food ordering, things of that nature with the different child development centers on base. So it's quite daunting, but if you know where to look and where to get information, you'll be pretty organized. As you mentioned, I currently work as a supervisory dietitian and the section chief of food operations at the Baltimore VA. So while I'm not currently serving children, I still am able to lend a lot of my food service love and passion to veterans. So that's always a good deal. Learning objectives, to touch on them one more time, to identify how to identify and select purchase foods from safe sources, and to explore best practices for storing food items correctly, including temperature control and safety measures to maintain the quality and safety of food served in the CACFP. So what we're going to go over, we're going to talk about several aspects of the food portion of CACFP. As you know, there's the service portion and the reimbursement portion, but we're going to focus on the food service and food safety portion. Safe foods and supply sources, your food storage, inventory control, food safety, and the quality of the food, because they go hand in hand. Because even if food is safe and healthy, if it's not of good quality, we know that children will not eat it. We know that we won't eat it. And then HACCP, the Hazard Analysis Critical Control Points. So safe food and supply sources. The reason I added supply to this is because we have to serve things inside of, you have to use utensils, you have to serve them inside of bowls, plates, cups, paper goods. You have to make sure that what you're using is safe and not just the food that you order. And so usually when you are with a vendor, you get your food from them. You might have a separate supply vendor, or you might also get supplies from the same vendor. So you want to make sure that they're reputable and approved. If you are part of a larger system or program or organization that falls under an umbrella, these things are usually already chosen for you. They're already part of some type of contract, or that we call them prime vendors. I know at where when I worked at CYS at the Army, we had a prime vendor, and that was the main person and partnership we had. And the reason I say partnership is because you work with this person, you work with your vendor to make sure that they have things that have child nutrition labels, or that you have the product formulation statements, that you can look at the ingredient list, the allergen list. You have all of those things. And if you don't have a reputable approved source, you might not be able to get this information so readily, and they might not be as readily available to work with you and for you for the program, because they do get paid for the products that you purchase for them, but it's a partnership. If they don't supply what you need, then you might find a different vendor, and they don't want to lose your business. So make sure that they're reputable. Also certified. You should be able to find any type of certification, any type of inspection reports. They should be readily available to you from their website, especially if they're a known or popular vendor. You want to make sure that they have the local regulations, state regulations, federal regulations, all into play. Delivery habits, inspections, making sure that when they deliver foods to you, when they deliver things, they deliver them when somebody's there, somebody's present. Make sure things aren't crushed, things aren't really close to expiration dates based on your needs. They shouldn't be delivering a large case of a 40-pound case of something to you that expires tomorrow. That means it has been sitting on their shelf quite a while. So making sure that you're getting things from them clean, organized, not soiled, not smelling poorly. Make sure your frozen foods have remained frozen, and we'll get into more about food quality and safety a bit later, but you want to make sure they're delivering them to you as safely as possible, so that when you follow your own food safety habits, that it's safe from ordering all the way to table. Product recalls. Keep up to date on those things. Again, when I say, you're going to hear me say reputable quite a bit, they will usually send you, if you have a prime vendor or a large vendor, they typically will send you inspection reports of their own. If they have something that's recall report, excuse me, if they have something that has been recalled, they are very quick about it, because they don't want that legal ramification of making someone sick. And also ethically, they simply don't want to get anyone sick, whether there's a cost associated with it or not. Plenty of recalls lately, and you always want to double and triple check your inventory. It's helpful to have a list of things that you normally order, keep in an inventory list, which we'll get into, to make sure that you don't have, if it's bananas, if it's lettuce, if it's blueberries, if it's cucumbers. These are all things that I've seen recalled relatively recently. So to make sure that your children stay safe, particularly because children, as you know, compromised immune systems, as being younger, they're not fully developed. So it's considered a high risk group, especially young children, especially toddlers, which you serve in CACFP. So making sure that those things are taken off the shelf and discarded and properly handled. handled and labeled, as well as do, if you can't throw it away at the time, labeled as do not use, and stored, because some will have you keep them so they can test them. So they'll give you, when something is recalled, they'll give you instructions. They'll tell you to either discard it or to label it and hold on to it, because some things they do have to take in for further testing, especially if it's something that's related to like a foodborne outbreak or something like that. And the National Sanitation Foundation certification. That is where we get our serving spoons from, and our slotted spoons, the little brown ones that I miss so much, and the little bowls and the plates with the sections in them. So these are materials that are specifically made to serve hot foods in. They've been found safe as far as non-porous and things of and things like that, so that they can be easily cleaned and sanitized without any issues. As you know, if you have something that arrives cracked, you shouldn't be using it, because you don't know what's harbored in those different areas, what's harbored in those cracks, as far as not being able to properly clean and sanitize. So those would be the type of things that you don't want to accept from your food and your supply sources. Food storage, one of my favorite things, food storage. So you have your first in, first out. That's always the go-to. And labeling. And these are the two, they're the most important things, and people think of them as the easiest things, but they're really the most daunting, because they come so first nature that sometimes people let them fall by the wayside, believe it or not. First in, first out is not only for perishable foods, and I cannot stress this enough. It's not only what's in the refrigerator, making sure it doesn't spoil first. It also goes for dry goods, because dry goods even don't last forever. Even if they last for years and years, the quality does diminish after a certain amount of time. So you don't want a bag of flour sitting in the back for 8 years while you buy new flour. It's a waste of money, and you want to make sure that you're pushing that out so you keep that quality and also save money. Labeling. Not only labeling when things come in when they're received, label when things are opened, label how long they have to be open if you have to discard it after a certain amount of time. I've always given the advice, what I've always said, label things like you'll never enter the kitchen again and someone else has to serve and use this food. Label it so no one has to come and ask you where this came from, when did you get it, how long can I use it? I should be able to walk into any kitchen if it's properly labeled and know when something is going to expire, whether something is safe to use. I shouldn't need anyone to help me with that if things are labeled properly. So that's the purpose of the labeling. And also, nobody's memory is perfect. If you're serving food all day, 3 meals a day, 5+ days a week, you don't remember when that dough came in. You don't remember when those eggs arrived. You just won't. You think you will. Oh, I'll know how long they'll last. You won't. You'll move on to the next thing, to the next meal, to the next delivery, and won't remember anything about what came last week. So it's for yourself as well. And that leads me to dry storage. People think of dry storage as, oh, it doesn't need as close attention just because this stuff won't spoil. It's also about the pest control. When pests see things sitting around for a long time, they find a home. Oh, again, back to this flower. This flower been here for 5 years. That means I'm supposed to live in this flower. That's what that tells me, because it's not moving. It's like a home. It's permanent. Why not live there? That's what pests think. That's what they believe. They learn their environment, they see what's around them, and they make homes. They build things out of the paper, out of the pieces, and that's what they do. So you want to be moving that stuff so they know that you can't stay here. Everything in here moves in and moves out, so you can't stay here. And again, shelf life. As I mentioned, things don't have a permanent shelf life. One tool that I love, as far as being able to get from a vendor, if your vendor is able to supply it, is a shelf life list. There are some items that come, especially large cans, bulk cans of fruits and vegetables and things like that, beans. They won't have necessarily an expiration date, but they will have a pack date or a manufactured date. So a shelf life list, if you're ever able to access one, tells you how long from manufacturing and packaging till expiry, because some things just won't have, you're lucky if you have something with a clear expiration date, but some things are kind of, loose and you're not sure. So you'll have a list, and it usually comes in days. You can get it in probably multiple different increments of time, but the list that I have come in days. So it'll say 360 days, it'll say 720 days. It'll usually do like that. Or it'll say 30 days. It just depends on what it is. And it's all things on it, whether it's refrigerated, frozen, dry storage, all those things will be on the list. So you can have things that literally say 10 days or 7 days because it's that perishable, up to things that say the highest, I think, was 999 days. And I think that's as high as the program or the database goes. But those are things that last for years and years, as you know, things like staples, like, your sugar, your flour, and things like that, your salts. Refrigeration. So the cooking temp rule, if anybody knows how to stack a fridge, the premise behind it, and I think it's helpful. A lot of people, I find it's difficult to remember necessarily numbers, to remember the actual temperature. So you'll keep that a list of that, and it's always good to have that hanging somewhere. But the premise behind this rule is if you can't remember how to stack them, think of it as if something above a food drips down onto that food. Would that food be more dangerous or would it be less dangerous, if that makes sense? So you have ready to eat food on top because one, nothing should be dripping into it because it's already ready to eat. You're not going to cook it any further. That's things that are already like salads, things that are already cut up, things that are already clean, things that are either already cooked or you plan to eat them raw and they don't need to be cooked like fruit and things like that. You want that on top because if apple slices fall down on your burger isn't more dangerous. Does that make sense? It doesn't make your burger doesn't need to cook longer because a piece of lettuce fell on top of it. So you want to put the least dangerous things up top and then go that way. That's why you have poultry and ground foods closest to the bottom. Poultry, of course, has that highest ready to eat after cooking temperature of 165. But ground meats, and the premise behind this, if some people don't understand why ground meats, no matter what ground meat, whether it's poultry, whether it's ground chicken, ground beef, any ground food, ground deer. If anybody eats deer, I eat all sorts of things. I'm not a picky eater, but is because once you grind it, it has more surface area to collect bacteria. If you have a solid piece of meat, it literally only has the top, the bottom, and the sides. When you have ground meat, every strip, every little piece is considered a surface and bacteria can form on that surface. That's why ground meat should also be cooked to a really good temperature. And that's why they put the little warnings on your menus. If you see them when you eat at restaurants, eating raw or undercooked food, consuming these things can be a risk, to let you know that it is a risk when you want that medium meat or that medium well meat and not well done. It does come with a risk. And so seafood has a lower temperature that it needs, about 135, 145, excuse me. And so that'll be under the ready to eat. And then you go down to the 155s, the 165s. And that's how you want to stack your refrigerator. You want to make sure that if anything does end up dripping, like from chicken or from turkey, that it's only on the bottom and it doesn't get on anything else, because then that'll make that thing have to be cooked up to that temperature. And you don't want to ruin your fish and cook your fish to 165 because that fish will be rubbery and who knows what, and nobody will eat that. And then you just wasted your fish. So you don't want that to happen. Freezer storage. Again, just because something keeps in a freezer for 5 years doesn't mean you should keep it in the freezer for 5 years. First in, first out applies to your freezer just as well as any other area in the kitchen. You want to make sure that things aren't getting freezer burn. You want to make sure they're as airtight as possible. You want to make sure that you're breaking things down in bulk as you need them. And that's going to be part of this. All ties together with inventory control. If you know that you only need to serve 15 pounds for this meal and it comes in 40 pounds to save money, you should be breaking that down in 5-10 pound increments. So that you can freezing those individually. So also, as far as food safety goes, you're not thawing the whole 40 or partially thawing it just to pull off a piece and put it back together. When you know better, you do better. Like as a kid, I didn't know one way or the other. When I'm learning how to cook, what I would do is I would take out a big bulk of hamburger. I would let it thaw on the counter. No, we'll talk about that. And as it thawed, I would take the thawed part and just scrape it off until I had enough to make my burger. And then I put the rest back in the freezer. That could have killed me. I'm glad I'm here to tell the tale. But those are the things that you learn. You want to break it down before you freeze it so you won't be thawing and refreezing and leaving at room temperature and things of that nature. So, and also I mentioned food storage, and I might as well add chemical storage, making sure that it's stored away from your food, making sure that it's in a completely separate area. As far as dry storage goes, it shouldn't be on a shelf with it. It shouldn't be packaged with it. It shouldn't be in a place where it could spill on it. Completely different entities. If you have a separate room altogether for it, or closed, locked off container for it, that's the safest way to store chemicals, because you do need chemicals in a kitchen because it's part of cleaning and sanitizing. Inventory control. This is actually one of my favorite parts of food service. I'm that nerd. I'm a math nerd. I love the numbers. I love putting together the portions. I love figuring it out. I love ordering certain cases, certain pounds. How many pounds do I need based on the people I'm serving? It's my pleasure. It's the best part of food service for me. So inventory control. So many things go into that. As you can see, food storage goes into inventory control. You control your inventory when you label it properly and don't have to throw it away unnecessarily, when you're using first in and first out and don't have to throw away older stuff because you bought new stuff and forgot about it. All of those things are part of inventory control, safe serving food safely. Also, if you cook something and it's not to the right temperature and it's been sitting out too long, you have to throw it away. That doesn't control inventory. So literally every aspect of food safety and food quality actually leans into inventory control. It's all related. Menu planning. You want to make sure you're choosing your menu to match what your vendor offers. You want to be sure that if things come in a certain size, if an ingredient is very expensive, that you're planning your menu where you can utilize that item, whether it can be preserved. Is there more than one multi-purpose it? If you want to have tortillas just for a wrap, is there any place else you can make tortillas? Can you make homemade nacho chips with some healthy cinnamon dust on it? Can you use the tortillas to make quesadillas, not just wraps? Find different ways to use it. Can you make it into tortilla strips and use it in a soup, a Southwestern soup? Not just for one thing, so it stretches, so you don't have, once you do order it, you have different places to put it. So plan your menu according to what you're able to purchase, how much things cost to purchase, and also variety, color, things of that nature. Standardized recipes, making sure that you're using recipes that are portioned out, that have been tested, tried, you yield the same results every time, so that as you're controlling your inventory, you know what's required. If you have a standardized recipe, you know it takes 50 pounds of this, or you know it takes 3 cups of this. So you know you only need to, that your food lasts for this long. You look at your expiration days. If I buy this quart and this quart will last for 2 recipes and it'll last for 3 weeks, this works for this recipe. Choose your recipes based on your inventory. They go hand in hand so that they match up, so that you don't have a lot of waste or overuse, or that you don't run out of things. Same token. Portion control. We all know CACFP has those strict portions for those age groups. That's 1 to 2s, the 3s to 5s, the 6 to 12s, and on up. So you have these portions that you need, making sure that if you don't serve too much, depending on your age group. You might only be cooking for toddlers. You might only be cooking for 1 to 5-year-olds. You don't need to get certain amounts of things. Some things you might want to get piecemeal. And I say that because, yes, buying in bulk, if you need food in bulk, this is very important to remember, saves you money. But if you don't need 50 pounds of something and it only comes in 50 pounds or individual, it might cost more per unit, but you won't throw away the other 35 pounds you're not using. So it pays for itself. So you have to make that decision based on what you need and who you're serving and how much you're serving. If you're serving 22-year-olds, you don't need much food. Believe it or not, they have a tablespoon of this, a fourth a cup of this, a half a cup of this, a half of the grain equivalent, whole grain equivalent. So it's, you think about it like that. That's how you control your portions. Production calculators. If this is something that is provided for you or that you can put together, it takes the recipe and the portions you need, and you plug in, it tallies it up. It's a spreadsheet. It's usually done in Excel or some type of spreadsheet application like that, and it'll do a total. So if all those things are there, whatever the ingredient is for the recipe, how many tablespoons or teaspoons you need per portion, and how many portions you need, you just plug in how many children you're serving, because it'll be by age group. It'll tell you everything that you need for your program. And then you just say, I have 10 children this age, 5 children this age, and you'll get a total at the bottom of everything you need and how much. If you do that for a week at a time, then you'll see what you need to order for the week, or however often your deliveries come. And you want to make sure that when you do set your deliveries, if you're able to set your own deliveries, that you've planned what menu days are going with what delivery carefully, so you know what should arrive and how much should arrive, and also what will carry over and what you're able to save and preserve. You want to consider all those things. I mentioned the product shelf life list. As far as food safety, this is that same principle. You want to make sure you keep those. So again, you know when something is about to go bad, or you know when you purchase something, you're good. It's okay if you purchase this in bulk because it's going to last for 2 years. I'm okay with that. And I'll be able to use it multiple times over the 2 years, so it won't go to waste. You have to foreshadow. You have to think ahead. It's forecast. How does this menu item usually fare? Do I need to make enough extra portions for everybody to have their second serving of vegetables for this because it's a big hit, or are these things that we are struggling to get them to eat because we haven't finished marketing them yet, marketing them, excuse me, yet, and they haven't caught on to it yet. They haven't loved it yet. So you want to think about those things, what sells and what doesn't. And then Food Buying Guide. This is an amazing resource. It actually gives you there's different sets of webinars. There's different ways to use this. A brochure that you can find at their website. It's the USDA website with the Food Buying Guide. And also ICN has different webinars to show you how to use this product and different ways that this will help you to purchase foods, which foods you're going to, how much you need to purchase, different recipes and things like that. So it's a really great resource that I think I recommend to anybody, especially who is operating the CACFP. So this is a little video that I have. I'm actually going to, if I'm able to cut my camera so that this video will play. So I think if it'll go back to sharing, excuse me, sorry about that. Because I don't want to mess up the video. So I want to make sure that I'm still sharing. Okay. I can just minimize this. That'd be great. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Here we go.
Huh. Hey, Moby, smell this milk. I thought it smelled a little old. Dear Tim and Moby, my sister got sick from eating a hamburger. What can we do to make sure our food is safe? From Ophelia. Lots of foods make a nice home for bacteria, molds, viruses, and other microorganisms. Unfortunately, some of these creatures can make you really sick if you eat them. Getting sick from food is called food poisoning, and it can cause severe diarrhea and vomiting for hours on end. Yeah, not fun stuff. In infants and the elderly, it can even be deadly. But you can avoid getting food sick by following some simple rules. First, keep in mind that certain foods are likelier than others to cause illness. Meats, fish, vegetables, fruit, and dairy products, including eggs, all make friendly homes for microorganisms. Well, you don't have to avoid these foods, just be careful with them. Meats, fish, and dairy products can go bad in just a few hours when left out of the refrigerator. So be sure to put groceries away right when you get home from the store. And check to make sure that meats are properly wrapped. The juice from meat and fish can contain germs too, and you don't want that dripping on foods like vegetables that won't be cooked. Speaking of cooking, heat kills the microorganisms that might be milling around in your food. For foods that you don't cook, like fruits and vegetables, you just want to make sure to rinse them really well before eating them. The same goes for your hands. Always wash with soap and warm water before eating. Even in the grocery store, you can do a few things to keep your family's food safe. Avoid foods with damaged packaging, including dented cans, open lids, cracked glass and plastic, and other flaws. That's right, the packaging may have information about the food's freshness. Milk and juice that's pasteurized will say so on the package. Pasteurized liquids have been heated up to a high temperature for a certain amount of time. Pasteurization kills germs and increases the food's shelf life. Perishable foods that can easily go bad usually show either an expiration date or a date it needs to be sold by. If the expiration date has already passed, don't take any chances. If you're unsure about whether a food's safe, it's better to be safe than sorry. So I guess we need to go buy milk. Well, no, the milk's already bad. Boiling it won't make it not bad. Ew!
Well, all right. So I will, once we pass this slide, I'm going to find out what y'all thought of the video. But so food safety and quality, they go hand in hand. The safety of the food obviously is the most important for health reasons and safety reasons, but the quality is important to make sure that the food does not go to waste and that the nutrition and the value of it for the person eating it is realized, and they won't do that if the food is not of quality. So proper thawing methods. Do not do what I used to do with hamburger as a child. Please don't do that. Um, so the proper thawing methods are either under refrigeration. Of course, that takes longer, but it is really the best, my favorite way to do it, because you can guarantee your food remains safe because it'll never be out of that safety zone. It'll go straight from being frozen to being at about 40 degrees, or if you're at a commercial kitchen, probably about 37 degrees or so. But it will be able to thaw. It takes several days, especially depending on how big or thick it is. That's also another benefit of freezing things in smaller portions so that they can thaw quicker if they're under refrigeration. You can also thaw under cool running water. The water should be refrigerator temperature. The water should be around 40 or so degrees. You don't want it to be too warm because the outside will start to be in the temperature danger zone while the middle is still frozen solid. So it is quicker, but you have to be patient. If I know I want to cook something that day, I will run it under cold water for hours, if I need to make sure that I'm able to cook it, but I won't just let it sit out. Another way to thaw is to make sure that you can do it in a microwave, but the only trick about the microwave is that you have to cook it immediately. That's something that shouldn't go once you thaw it in the microwave. It should not be refrigerated, and it should not be frozen again. It needs to be cooked the moment it thaws out. Because that is definitely in a danger zone that you don't want, because it's not cooked all the way, so you know it didn't make it to a proper cooking temperature, but you know it's not cold anymore because it was just in a microwave. So it's just not safe. So it needs to be cooked right away. And the other way, you can also cook from frozen. Some things, especially like patties of meat, things like flash frozen. People do it protein a lot. Hamburger patties, veggie burger patties, chicken fillets, things like that, fish fillets. They can be cooked in a pan right from frozen. They don't have to be thawed out first. So those are ways to thaw food safely, so that the food is still of safety and quality when you're able to, so that you're able to serve it properly. Cooking temperatures, as you can see, your cooking temperatures vary depending on what the type of food is. Things that are already fully cooked, ready to eat, like you see ham is not something that's, you can eat ham as is, but you don't choose to because you want it warm. It simply has to go into that heating temperature, that heating zone, and holding temperatures are about 135, but you want to cook them up to the 145 for the different types of roast and beef. One also for your seafood, you want to cook anything poultry, ground. It says egg dishes to 160. I recommend 165 because to me that falls with poultry, but that's for me. And any type of stuffing, casserole, things that have blended mixed ingredients, or when you're reheating leftovers because they're coming from being refrigerated and they're leftovers, so they've already started to go towards spoilage. They may not be anywhere near spoilage, but that's the next step after cooking or preparing food, is one day if it's not eaten, it will spoil. So you want to cook it to 165 to kill as much of the bacteria that might have grown as you can. One thing this thermometer doesn't show is the extra danger zone. In between that 40 and 140 is the danger zone, but specifically between 70 degrees and 125 degrees, as 70, as you may know, is room temperature. Anything between 70 degrees and 125 degrees is super dangerous. Bacteria grows at an immense rate. And so that's why you don't want to leave your food sitting on the counter. You don't want to leave perishables just sitting out on your counter, because that's the worst place for them, because the bacteria will grow faster than any other place on this thermometer between the 70 and the 125. Again, holding temperatures, you want to make sure that you're holding at 135 for your hot and you're holding your cold under refrigerated temperatures. Also, you can hold these are, there's few rules, few and far between. You'd have to use the rules that really relate to what you're doing. But if you may not have a heating or cooling method, so if you're holding something that is cold with nothing around and no refrigeration, then you can hold it for up to 4 hours and then it must be discarded. Things like if you're out at a picnic, because you want to be safe wherever you are. If you're out on a field trip, if you have something, you're outside eating and you don't have ways to heat or cool, no electricity, after 4 hours cold, it needs to be thrown away. And that's why it's important to label it. You want to label it with the time that it was prepared and the time it must be discarded, because everybody might not know the 4 hour rule. So don't just put, oh, I made it at 2 because, oh, 2, it might be good till 2 tomorrow. No one knows. So you put prepared at 2 o'clock, discard by 6 o'clock if it's something like that. Um, for if it's a hot food, you want to throw it out after 2 hours because it's heated and things will cool down, but things won't necessarily heat up, if that makes sense. Things don't naturally heat up. They have to have a heat applied to it to heat up, but things will cool down from hot just by sitting. If you have a hot plate, it will become cool if nothing happens to it. But a cold plate won't just become hot by you looking at it. So those you want to throw away after 2 hours because they've cooled down likely to the danger zone and they've been sitting there for quite some time and they're no longer good to eat. Meal service, same principle. You want to make sure that you're serving things properly so that they maintain their temperature, especially if it's something that you're serving like in a classroom or you have to transport it to a group. You don't want to transport your heat rises, so you don't want to transport your beverages next to your hot food. They transfers. You want to make sure you keep them separately, keep it in an ice bath if you can, on a different cart, things like that. Serve serve things so that your hot foods remain hot and your cold foods remain cold. And also that you won't mix things up, cross contact as far as food allergies, even though things have been prepared properly. You do have children with quite a few food allergies or food aversions, intolerances, and you want to make sure that your dairy is not mixing in with anything else. That's because somebody might not be able to have dairy, or you want to make sure that if you have some type of fruit allergy or something like that, that is not touching anything else. So that's part of making sure that your food's safe when you're preparing the food as well as serving the food all the way until it's consumed. You need to keep it safe. Cooling methods. If you have something that's hot that you want to serve again, and this is it's for CACFP. I know the program that I was in, we weren't permitted to serve any leftovers for obvious reasons because of critical control points, and if they're not reheated properly, then that's just food, that's sickness waiting to happen. That's an illness waiting to happen to you and to someone's child in your care. So you don't want that. But if you must cool something, you want to make sure that you're cooling it as quickly as possible so it gets into and out of the danger zone ASAP. If you're cooling something from 160 and you want to put it in the refrigerator, you don't want it sitting between 40 and 140 for a long time. And you certainly don't want it sitting between 70 and 125 for a long time. So that's when you want to separate things into shallow pans. If it's a liquid, you want to take an ice wand. If it's a big wand that you fill with water and you freeze it, and you want to stir it up so that the cold gets distributed into it without disturbing the recipe. You want to set it in an ice bath if you need to. One thing you don't want to do is put it in the refrigerator scalding hot, because you know what that'll do? That'll take the temperature of your refrigerator up inside, and then the things inside of it will be at risk of being in the danger zone. So you want to cool the things outside of refrigeration as quickly as you can so that you can get them into refrigeration without messing up what's already in your refrigerator. Reheating, you want to reheat anything to 165, as we mentioned by looking at the thermometer earlier. That's the proper way to reheat anything. You can do it slowly in the oven, however you choose to do it, but you want to make sure that you kill any bacteria that might have grown after it was cooked and while it was being reheated and while it was refrigerated and so on. Freezer storage, making sure that things are airtight so it's not getting freezer burnt. Making sure that you're able to recognize it with the labeling, so that you know what it is. Once it's frozen and kind of caked over with ice, you might not know exactly what it is or exactly what condition that it's in. Making sure that you're freezing the proper food. Some foods don't freeze well. Some things you have to prepare a certain way and then freeze them. Some things you just lose because freezing them turns into a watery, cracked, gross mess that you don't want to serve again later. So choose your battles on what you choose to freeze and save and what you're not saving, because that's the last thing you want, is to prepare something that's just turned into mush because you tried to freeze it and it doesn't freeze well. So story time. So we are going to open the chat. We're going to open the chat because I want some feedback on some things. So working in this field, you have a lot of tales to tell. Let me tell you, you have so many things that happen that you see when you work in food service. So I'm going to mention some stories. These are all 100% true stories. There will be nothing identifying in these stories, but these are all things that I have witnessed and experienced in my time in food service. And at this point, 11 years in food service and various types of food service. So let's say I get to my job. I start early. I'm an early employee. I work really early. I pick up my, I want to put away my delivery. It's the delivery day. And I get there and I am so stoked because I'm going to have a quick day because all of my items are already there. Everything I order is just out, hanging out on the loading dock. The delivery person is nowhere in sight. They did me a favor because all this stuff is here early. I can knock it out. Boom, boom. The delivery is put away. What, if anything, is wrong with this scenario? Feel free to use the chat and let me know what you think might be wrong with that happening. We need to check the internal temperatures. It was left on a loading dock, just sitting there. You don't know how long it's been there. How long was it out? You can't inspect it. All of this, temperature control, time temperature abuse. You don't know the arrival time or the arrival temp. No accountability for the order. All of these things. These are some great, great answers. It's so many things wrong with this. The time and temperature, you don't know if the food is safe. You don't know if something is missing that you have to pay for because you're going to be invoiced for it. You don't know how long it's been exposed outside. You don't know if anything got contaminated because something could have crawled in it or been on it or somebody could have touched it. You don't know any of those things. You cannot accept this delivery. That is when you contact your vendor and say, unacceptable, I need new food. That's when you don't let that happen. That has happened. It just astonishing that they thought it was okay to deliver food when no one was there to receive the food. Thank you all so much. These are very, very good answers. Absolutely. Definitely contact them immediately. Let them know you have to discard everything. You want to be credited for everything so you don't lose that inventory money. And have somebody be and absolutely file a grievance as well. Talk to someone because that should never happen. Absolutely not. So one day, let's say you're at work and forbid, I mean, things happen. People have all sorts of issues. People have personal issues. People have health issues. That doesn't mean they shouldn't be allowed to work. But you have somebody who might have a blood thinning issue. So they have a small cut, a tiny cut, but unfortunately their cuts you can't just put on a finger cut. It doesn't work like that. The blood doesn't necessarily stop without visiting the doctor, without having certain medication. This person might decide, you know what, I'm just going to wrap it up, hope for the best, and keep on serving this breakfast. What, if anything, is wrong with this scenario? Nope. Nope. All of that. Right. Nope. Everything is wrong. Yes. Everything is wrong with this scenario. Liability, blood contamination, everything. The person should go home or to urgent care 100%. Blood can get into the food. And even if there's something wrong with this person, you have to treat all blood. Me working in a hospital now, you have to treat all blood as contaminated blood. It just doesn't matter whose blood it is. The whole scenario is absolutely dangerous. Hit the nail on the head. Please go home. Whatever leave you have, if you don't have leave, work it out. But please don't serve food if you have any type of exposed sores or cuts or blood or anything of that nature. So another scenario, this story. So the truck is packed. This person, great truck. The truck is refrigerated, has a frozen section, a refrigerated section. Our cold foods arrive cold. Our frozen foods arrive frozen. They ran out of space in the truck because they have deliveries from multiple people and they're hours and hours away, and they didn't want to make 2 trips or have to split up the trucks. So why not put all of these cleaning products in this same truck? I mean, why not on the same pallet? Let's wrap it all up. It's all in boxes. It's all separate. It's all sealed up. What could go wrong? What's wrong with this scenario? It could definitely leak. You can definitely contaminate the food, chemicals. Again, leaks, the chemicals can leak into the food. Food and cleaning products should always be kept separate. Accidents could happen and it can contaminate the food. Absolutely. You think they won't leak, but you can't prove they won't leak, especially if you're driving the truck. You're not in the back with the food. Absolutely must keep them separate. They should not be on the same pallet whatsoever. Whatever space you need to save, that is the vendor's responsibility. That is not up to us to accept things that have been mixed on the same space, the same area as chemicals. So those are a few scenarios that actually have happened in the past like probably 8 or so years that I've worked, just random things that I found. And I was astonished that some people didn't see problems with some of these things. And I'm glad that you all do, because these are all scenarios that have happened and can happen. And if you work in food service long enough, will happen. And you'll have to know how to deal with these things and what the proper course of action is for that. So thank you all so much for your participation. And before we close the chat, did everybody like the video? Any thoughts about it? And I'll tell you one thing that stuck with me about the video is that this is a phrase that I've always loved. You cannot unspoil food. That is my favorite line. Like, you cannot unspoil food. Once it's gone, it is gone. It's once food goes into that spoilage, you can't, like he said, you can't cook the milk and make it unchunky. That's not going to happen. So when I found that video, I was like, that's really, I love the way when he said, when he was about to boil it, he was like, it's spoiled, it's gone. Because it is, and that's how food works. If something goes bad, it's bad, and you have to take the loss on that. So that's why it's important to follow all these steps so food doesn't go bad. So thank you all so much. We are going to close the chat, but I really appreciate the participation. I really appreciate the feedback on this story and the scenarios. And I'm glad that you all make really good decisions and you know what's up and you know what not to accept when you have a delivery. So awesome. So finally, we're going to head into hazard analysis critical control points. Now, this is something that you might hear a lot if you work in food service, or you might not hear it often. It's essentially, it is a systematic process that basically tells you it takes a look, it examines the entire flow of food from purchasing, from basically not even from even before purchasing, from choosing your vendor, essentially, honestly, all the way to when the food is consumed. That's at every single point. It lets you know where the dangers lie so you can mitigate the risk. You'll see in a lot of standardized recipes, several standardized recipes, there are critical control points listed in the recipe. Like if you have to make like a salad dressing or you have to make a whole salad from scratch, it'll tell you it's a hazard. If you might have a pasteurized egg that you have to cook or something like that, that's a critical control point. Because did you cook it to the right temperature before you mixed it into the wrap, before you mix it into the burrito bowl? Did you cook the egg all the way? That's a critical control point. If you have something that is from frozen and you have to thaw it first, that's a critical control point. Have you thawed it properly? Did you set it out on the counter, which is a no-no, or did you thaw it under refrigeration? All of those things, from when you purchase, making sure you purchase from the right vendor, receiving, making sure you're checking your internal temperatures and knowing that you have what you need, storing, making sure that you're labeling, using first in and first out, preparing, making sure that you're keeping things, using different cutting boards so things won't be cross-contaminated, and making sure you're cooking them to temperature, making sure you're holding them at the right temperature or discarding them if they're not. Make sure you're cooling down quickly so they stay out of the temperature zone, making sure that if you're reheating them, you're doing it up to 165, and make sure when you're serving, you're not contaminating and not leaving things out of temperature too long. You're finding points at each of these intervals where something could go wrong and you want to stop it from going wrong before it does. So that's what hazard analysis critical control points are. You want to analyze your hazards at critical control points, and you want to mitigate the risk. So it's the entire flow of food, and that's the purpose of using HACCP. It's a wonderful tool, and it also keeps you focused. It makes sure you don't miss a step. It makes sure that you don't forget about anything. If you're literally looking at all of these things, if you just check off these boom, 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 all these bullet points from purchasing to serving, then you have it taken care of, and you know you haven't done anything dangerous, and you haven't done anything to lose your inventory or to cause the food safety or the quality of the food to be compromised. So that's what you use HACCP for. It's a wonderful tool. It's one of my faves. So to close out, we have the key takeaways. So best practices start before you purchase by finding a reputable, safe, and certified vendor. And it ends after meal service. It ends after you've served the food, discarded food safely, put away whatever food you don't need, wrapped everything, refrigerated everything that needs to go back in after you finish preparing the food and the recipe and things. Inventory control preserves all sorts of resources, not just money. It preserves time. It preserves money, definitely. It preserves labor. If you have to keep throwing away stuff, that's labor. You have to keep buying trash bags to throw away stuff that went bad because you didn't control your inventory. That's money. You have to have somebody else reorder the food, re-receive the food, put away the food, relabel the food because you had to throw away food because you didn't control your inventory. When I say it preserves resources, controlling your inventory will save your operation so much time, energy, effort, and money. You won't want to miss it. You have to control your inventory. That is one of the most important parts of food service besides serving the safe food. HACCP keeps people safe. It absolutely keeps people safe at everybody who's serving and consuming the food. It keeps everyone safe. And use tools to make your role simpler. Use the tools like the food buying guide. Use tools such as production calculators if you're able to create one. Use tools like your menus. Your menus are a tool. Your menus actually control your operation. Your menus tell you how much staff you need, what cooking utensils you need, what cooking apparatuses you need, what ingredients you need. Your menu controls every aspect of your operation, including the inventory that you must control. So it's all a tool that you use to make your life simpler and make your role simpler so that you can work on the most important part, feeding the children and being focused on that part and enjoying those meals with them family style. So these are some resources, the links, I believe she shared the links with those. We can definitely, several resources that use the food buying guide. ServeSafe.com has a lot of resources. Also, it's a way to get certified if you don't have ServeSafe. So that you can safely handle food, looking at safe food handling and preparation for the Food Safety and Inspection Service. And then, of course, the ICN obviously has tons of resources, amazing on inventory management and any other resource you could possibly need. That's why I love ICN so much. And this is the way I end every single presentation I've ever done. If you have knowledge, let others light their candles in it. If you are in a dark room and you're the only one with a candle and you light everyone else's candle, the room gets lighter, it never gets darker. And your candle never goes out, it continues to burn. And that is what knowledge should always be. So feel free to get in touch with me if you would like. You're welcome to take my information. I'm open. I am here. I'm here to serve. I'm here to be a colleague. I'm here. I'm here. So.
I see all those great thumbs up and all those great hearts from our audience. Good job, Teresa. I love your knowledge and your passion with everything that you brought today. I was able to answer the majority of the questions that were coming in, but if you guys have any last minute questions before we close out, feel free to post those in the Q&A. And while we're waiting on those questions, I do just have a question for you, Teresa. Have you ever had to deal with a food recall? And if so, what steps did you take to remedy the situation?
Actually, yes. Some cucumbers. It was the salads. Thankfully, it was a quick and easy fix. I wish it was a more elaborate story to give all sorts of resources, but we made side salads. We made a whole bunch of side salads. Made about 80 garden salads that have a tomato and a cucumber and mixed greens, lettuce. We had to toss them. There was no way to get around it because it wasn't, and even they said it wasn't a high risk. Your lot number might not be included. It wasn't worth the risk. So you toss them and you make new salads without them. That's part of now that you asked that question, what you can do to mitigate as far as inventory control, making sure you're keeping track of that because you didn't count that in your numbers. When you did your accounting, when you did what do you need to purchase, when you use the food buying guide, you didn't count on having to throw away 24 pounds of cucumber. So you have to make sure you account for that, make sure you take note of that, make sure you remember, okay, I have to replenish this. Because they didn't last as long because I had to throw them all out. And they usually will reimburse. If your vendor is reputable and it has integrity, they will totally reimburse that because they're the ones they take that loss. It wouldn't be a loss on you if there is a recall. But you toss it. It's heartbroken. It depends on what it is. Thankfully, it was only cucumber because cucumber is not that expensive. I'm glad it wasn't roast. Please don't recall the pot roast. Please.
Right. And then I have another question. Your story times were amazing. And I'm sure that some of that came from first experiences, just real world experiences of you being in the child nutrition field. Have you ever had to return a product from a vendor? How did that work out? What did that conversation look like?
Yes. Because and you know, it's you have to put yourself in other people's shoes. You have to be empathetic. People will get away with what they can get away with, and it doesn't make anybody horrible or evil. Things cost money, nothing is free. A vendor job is to make money. I've never seen a nonprofit vendor in my entire life. I don't know if anybody has, but they need to sell food. They sell food to stay afloat. We would receive cases of like 4 packs of things, like 4 packs of 4 or 5 pound bags of coleslaw mix or 4 or 5 pound bags of salad mix. And the one on top, perfectly, that's beautiful, gorgeous, wonderful. The 3 on the bottom, you got to come get, we can't use this. You have to take this bag because they don't count on you going through all 4 bags, especially if they're delivering 15, 20 cases and you're also trying to make breakfast. You know what I mean? You're either preparing food, serving the food, or cleaning up from the food. The whole day is food. If you work in food service for children, that's what you're doing all day. There is no downtime. And so receiving a delivery is always that trick. They hope that you're busy. You have vendors that hope that you're busy. So yeah, there's been plenty of the dented cans. Like again, the box is fine. The box is completely intact. You open it up, all 6 cans are just look like they were just put under a bus on the highway. Like what happened to the cans? How did they even get in the box if the box is fine? You have to take this back. Like, yeah, 100 times, a billion. I have a ton of those all the time. So.
Well, thank you. At this time, let's see, we have one question from Jax, and it says, should everything that goes in the fridge be stored in airtight containers? Example, cooked meals, raw, cooked vegetables, fruits. Is there a limit to it? And she apologizes in advance if this is a dumb question. And I don't think there are no dumb questions, Jax.
No,
It's
a great, actually, that's an excellent question.
Dumb.
That is an excellent question.
What do you got, Teresa? What do you got?
It benefits you because that's actually, thank you for asking this because it opens up something that I didn't mention, fat time. Fat time is one of my favorite things. It's how you know how perishable a food is. It depends on the food, the acidity of the food, the time that the food's been out or around, the temperature of the food, the oxygen or air that gets to the food, which leads me to answer your question, and the moisture of your food, how damp it is. If wetter foods go bad quicker, that's why raw potatoes can sit out for a long time and be fine. But once you cook them, because they're steamed, they're full of water now, that's what makes them soft. Those will go bad. Whereas the ones on the floor will last for who knows how long, or not. I keep mine in a little crate on the floor. So that's why I said floor, but it's not a should thing. The reason I specifically mentioned it for the freezer, because freezer burnt has a taste. And that'll keep that 0-degree temperature from touching the food directly. When you lock out that cold air, it'll just be freezing the surface and keeping it like that. But of course, please know that if you do vacuum seal things, they last longer because they don't have the oxygen getting to them. You've taken all the air out of the equation, and air is what makes things more perishable the more air gets to it. So if you have the means to vacuum seal anything that you won't crush, then please do. Things that have high water content, they may not vacuum well because they won't keep the texture. Like you can't really vacuum seal watermelon because it'll just turn to mush. I probably would not do cucumbers because they're full of water, things like that. But things that are solid that will hold their shape, if you're able to vacuum seal, absolutely, that'll keep your items for quite a bit. Absolutely. Great question. Excellent question. I love that question.
Again, just as a reminder, this video or this webinar will be recorded and placed on iScience iLearn for you guys to take a look at it later. If you want to review it or share it with your friends, that's great too. And again, Teresa, thank you so much for your expertise and just your time, and you're just an invaluable source of information. And I'm so thankful that we were able to collaborate again. I love all your stories, and I love chatting with you and hearing all the great things that you have to offer. And thanks again for just your work in the child nutrition field, and also what you're doing now with the VA. And I appreciate you. And also for all of our audiences today, thanks for joining us. Thank you for giving a gift of time. Just remember, be safe, be kind, and feed those babies. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Y'all have a fantastic week.